Hello and welcome back to Shocks Talks. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you so much to all of you who are listening and watching. I'm just so happy that you're taking the time to check out this content. So thank you for that. Today's going to be a very short episode. I'm going to cover some current news, UAP, UFO current events, and then we're going to read a quick blurb about a sighting in Chicago that happened in 2006. And we have one more episode to go on our little mini timeline that we're doing here. And then I'll be shifting the focus over into contact and abduction and the experiencer side of all of this. So thank you for making it this far with me. I hope you'll stick with it. Tell a friend or two as well. And of course, liking these videos, subscribing, sharing. Those are all great ways to support me if you enjoy this content. I also wanted to say that, you've probably noticed by now that I'm trying to give you a lot of information without giving you too much of just what do I think, like what's my opinion on all this. I'm really trying to focus on the data, the research, and what other people have figured out about this topic. And right now, I think that it's pretty obvious that UFOs and UAPs are here. So whatever this is, somebody knows. Some people know. There's a lot of research that's been going on around this for a really long time. And it's trickling out to the public little by little. So I guess what I'm hoping for is a day when we have more clear information on what the secret agencies and governments and private programs are figuring out right now. And I don't know if that day will come, but I do know that there's already a lot of information available to us, a lot of research and a lot of data. So it's easy for me to say that this is real. It's a little bit harder to say what's going on with the aliens or the other dimensional beings or just the non-human intelligence that is behind all of this, but that's a really important thing for us to think about as we continue to explore this topic. So that's what we'll be getting into next. And for today, we're just going to get into some current events right now. So since the hearing, some people have already started trying to discredit whistleblower David Grush. An article was published in the Intercept on August 9th that brought up an episode from Grush's past where he was drunk and suicidal. Jeremy Corbell has been talking about this and has said that Grush, who already had PTSD from his service, went through a really hard time after his best friend committed suicide, and this led to some intense depression and drinking. These are the typical kinds of episodes that agents of disinformation look for in order to make it feel unsafe for other whistleblowers to come forward. They want to scare everybody because there are those who don't want this information coming out to the public, obviously. This is the statement Grush released in regards to this article before it was published. The mental health struggles of U.S. military and intelligence community personnel is a broad issue that is very close to my heart, and I believe it should be discussed in an open environment due to the stigmas associated with the subject. It has come to my attention that The Intercept intends to publish an article about two incidents in 2014 and 2018 that highlights previous personal struggles I had with post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, grief, and depression. Like many veterans, I struggled after returning home from Afghanistan. Furthermore, I was personally affected again years later when a close friend of mine, an intelligence officer who was serving in Air Force Special Operations Command at the time, took his own life shortly after we last spoke. I am proud to be transparent on this matter, and I am glad I got the help I needed to continue my intelligence career and maintain my TS SCI clearance, and that's top secret and sensitive compartmented information, that's SCI clearance, with multiple agencies. As I stated under oath in my congressional testimony, over 40 credentialed intelligence and military personnel provided myself and my colleagues the information I transmitted to the Intelligence Community Inspector General, and I took the leadership role to represent the concerns of these distinguished and patriotic individuals. These are not solely my allegations, but rather of multiple individuals that put their careers and reputations on the line to report their concerns of activities outside of congressional oversight. So this is kind of to be expected. Luckily, this little bump in the road hasn't derailed Grush. There's still hope to get him in a SCIF, and that's the sensitive compartmented information facility where he can tell members of Congress information that is not allowed to be released to the public. And you might remember, if you watched the July 26th hearing, how he kept mentioning this in the hearing. Like, they would ask a question and he would say, I do have that information. Like, if we can get into a SCIF, I can give it to you. I can't release it to the public. So, stuff like that. Well, this hasn't happened yet because the Department of Defense is trying to stonewall Congress. And at this time, they're claiming that Grush no longer has active clearance, and therefore they will not grant access to a SCIF. They make them jump through a million hoops, and this is what this whole situation has been like for so long. Every time someone makes 2 steps forward, there's like all these people that just come in and try to block the progress and push everyone back. So it's a long and slow and tedious process, but Representative Luna says that there are steps being taken to get this all sorted out, and there's a news clip of her talking in one of the links below. In other post-hearing news, the Mexican government will hold a similar hearing to the US on September 12th at 4 p.m. I found out about this through the TikTok creator Lester Nare, who I mentioned before, and I'll link his video below. I did some more research to verify this information. There's a video on Twitter where reporter Jaime Maussan is speaking in Spanish about the details, and luckily my Spanish listening comprehension is good enough to be able to verify that this is what's being reported. There's also a post on Twitter. Witness Ryan Graves, the pilot who we heard from at the July 26th hearing, he was invited to attend this Mexican hearing, and he has accepted. You can see his invitation and post on Twitter, also linked below. And this is the invite list for this hearing. You have Lieutenant Ryan Graves, U.S. Navy retired, Lieutenant Robert Salas, U.S. Air Force retired, Mr. Rony Tradu Vernet Braga, electronic engineer, federal officer at Petrobras, and researcher at the Brazilian Center for Physical Investigations, the Honorable Congressman Mr. Yoshiharu Asakawa of the Japanese House of Representatives, District 1 of Kanagawa, Japan, Mr. Julio Darwish, coordinator of the Mexican Association of Aviator Pilots, Mr. Jose Jaime Maussan Flota, director of Tercer Milenio, and journalist and UAP phenomenon researcher. And apologies for any mispronunciations. Kind of stumbling on my own words today also. I'm sorry for that. Apparently, Brazil and Japan have already held similar hearings to the U.S. July 26th hearing, and those happened in 2022. And while I was researching Brazil and UFOs, I came across a huge sighting that is referred to as Brazil's Roswell. So remember when we heard about Britain's Roswell? How many more of these are there? This was a case with multiple witnesses who saw a crashed craft and actual beings. It happened in Varginha, Brazil in 1996. The creatures were small, and one who was injured actually asked a girl for help, and it was one of those eye-lock telepathic communications. And there is a documentary about this called Moment of Contact. I haven't watched it yet, but I did watch this interview with the filmmaker, and both of those things are linked below as well. So, one of the really weird things that I heard about this incident is that everyone who came into contact with the beings or was near the site, and many people kind of surrounding it, were overwhelmed by this intense smell that they described as basically filling their nasal cavities and that they could not get rid of for either days or weeks, depending on the person. So that's something interesting that I can't say that I've heard before, and you'll have to look at that documentary and get more information and let me know what you find out. So our timeline event for today is another United States sighting, and this happened in 2006 on November 7th. So I'm just going to read you from this article, which I also linked from How Stuff Works. On November 7th, 2006, a metallic saucer-shaped craft was seen hovering over the O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. John Hilkovich from the Chicago Tribune reportedly said, "The disc was visible for approximately 2 minutes and was seen by close to a dozen United Airlines employees, ranging from pilots to supervisors. The object apparently shot straight up and carved a visible circular hole through the clouds." This one is interesting to me because we hear a lot from Air Force and Navy pilots, and this is commercial airline people. So the Federal Aviation Administration initially claimed that they didn't have any information about the sighting. The Chicago Tribune then filed a Freedom of Information Act request, which uncovered recorded conversations concerning the UFO. The FAA suggested that the sighting was the result of a weather phenomenon called a hole punch cloud, but the temperatures that day make this explanation impossible. Then the FAA said that the airport lights were responsible for the sighting, but the lights hadn't been turned on yet. A proper investigation was never conducted. So again, just another example of how nobody wants to be associated with these sightings. The commercial airlines, the Navy, and the Air Force, people are very quick to shut everyone up if they do report something. They're quick to make fun of them, and sometimes they go even further and work to discredit them or threaten them. So something big is going on. It's important for us to pay attention to it. We're going to have one more episode that talks about this UFO side of things before I start getting into contact and abduction. And I've been doing a lot of research on that side to prepare for these coming episodes. And one of the things that I'm realizing is that when we get into the contact and experience side of all of this, it's a lot of speculation, because what we're dealing with, instead of data along the lines of radar reports or credible witnesses, we have individuals reporting their unique experiences and often traumatic experiences. So the thing about it is that those reports, there are just so many of them. And not only that, but there are many similarities. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at it from this high level perspective of just, this is this huge, massive data. We know some of it may not be real. Some of it could be for attention. Some of it could be due to other mental health issues. But we're going to look at it all and we're going to speculate about what this data says to us. And I'm going to be talking to you a lot about Richard Dolan and his theories, because he's a historian who I think is very intelligent about this topic. And he has gone so far as to even try to imagine the possible psychological motivations and alien agendas that could exist as it relates to the data. So that's what we'll be getting into soon. And I think that's it for today. Like I said, it's a short one, so If you're still with me and interested in this content, please like it. Please share it with somebody that you think might find it interesting, and subscribe or press the bell if you want notifications of my next video. Thank you so much for listening to Shocks Talks, and I'll see you next time.